Welcome to the Faculty Award Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Miller, and today we're speaking with Andrew Suarez, a recipient of the 2025 Campus Award for Excellence in Faculty Leadership and the Jeffrey S. Elo Professor of Entomology and Evolution, Ecology, and Behavior at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Andrew is known for his research on ant behavior, ecology, and biological invasions, studying how social insects function and adapt across different environments. In addition to his research, Andrew is deeply committed to his leadership and mentoring on campus. He has led multiple academic units focusing on transparency, collaboration, and supporting faculty and students in their work.
My name is Andrew Suarez. I'm a professor of entomology and evolution, ecology, and behavior, and I'm an Illinois faculty member.
Join us as we learn more about Andrew's research and the impact he's making in science and on campus. Welcome, Andrew, to the podcast. Okay, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I really appreciate you being here.
Great, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So first question, I just want to get to know you. So can you introduce yourself, what your job is, and how long you've worked at the University of Illinois?
Yeah, so my name is Andrew Suarez. I'm a professor in the departments of entomology and evolution, ecology, and behavior. And those are both in the School of Integrative Biology. We have a lot of structure. I joined the faculty in 2003, but I have a longer history with the university as I did my undergrad and master's here back in the 1980s, early 90s.
So thinking back, why did you originally choose to work at the university? What attracted to you? I know you said you went to school here, which may be a big draw, but what initially drew you here to work here?
Yeah, so I was drawn to the University of Illinois specifically, and kind of the Midwest generally, because I still have family in the Chicago area. After finishing my master's here, I spent 10 years in California doing my PhD and a few postdocs, and then I hit the job market. And I was applying for schools primarily either in California or in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to get an offer from the University of Illinois, and I was very excited to come back. I still have friends in town that I've known since high school. I mean,
oh, cool.
I just have a long history with this
town. It's like
town.
a community you
That's
have
right,
built
yeah.
here, which is, that's great. So will you explain a little bit more about what your job here as a professor is?
Yeah, so my job is split between teaching responsibilities and then research responsibilities. I do then some service and public engagement as well.
Nice.
But the most important thing I think I do is teach, right? We're a teaching university. Our jobs are primarily to educate people from Illinois and elsewhere. And so I think that's really where most of my time is spent, is developing my classes and then teaching my classes to undergraduates and graduate students. Having said that, we're also a research university, and so I do a lot of research as well.
Right.
I spend a lot of time writing grants, publishing papers, and then mentoring graduate students in research so they can go on to get jobs as well.
Nice. How do you think, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, but how do you think your job relates to the overall mission at the university?
Yeah, so again, I really think that first and foremost, our responsibility is to the students.
Yeah.
And so, I teach at least one class every semester. And then we also have responsibilities as a land-grant university.
Yeah.
And so we have a mission that's to help everything from, the citizens of Illinois to the United States of America. We pay a lot of attention to the agricultural resources we have in this country and how we might benefit them. And then also through training, thinking about how do we mentor students to become the next generation of innovators, right?
Yep.
And so that when we're long gone and retired, we've left kind of an impact on people who will be able to continue, kind of carrying that torch.
Exactly. I want to kind of dive into your research. So your research covers invasive species like the Argentine ant. Why is understanding these species so important for our ecosystem? And can you talk a little bit more about your research?
Yeah, so in general, my research revolves around ants. I'd like to say I'm very question-driven, but to be honest, I'm very passionate about ants. I find them fascinating, and I've been working with them for a long time. And some of the research I do is pretty applied. For example, right now I'm working on the role that ants play in no-till agriculture to see if we stop tilling the soil as much, do their colonies get bigger, and do they return ecosystem services to agricultural fields that we might benefit from, save money, increase yield, things like that. But kind of bigger picture, I started working with ants in part because there are some species, not just ants, but almost all organisms, that as long as humans have been moving around the world, we've been moving them around with us, right?
Yeah,
they're like hitchhikers,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
They get introduced to new environments, and sometimes they do so with pretty severe economic or ecological damage or consequences, right? We can think of plenty of species that have been introduced, for example, to Illinois or the United States or elsewhere in the world that cause these problems. And ants are one of those, right? We've been moving ants around the world as long as humans have been moving around the world. And sadly, they don't always play nice, right? They get into a new environment, they displace the native ants, and then disrupt some of those ecosystem functions that ants play in the communities that they normally live in. And so I got fascinated by that question. I started looking at where these ants, not only where they were introduced and the problems they were causing, but also where they were native to. Like, what did they do in their kind of original range, and how has that changed when they get moved to a new environment as well?
Wow. Has your research in ants and social insects ever influenced thinking in other fields, whether that be here at Illinois or across the nation, across the world even?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. We really get down into the details of what we do, right? I can identify ants well. I can bring them into the lab, and we can measure somewhat esoteric things. But we always hope that our research is having a much broader impact than those maybe 10 people in the world who do what I do.
Right.
And so I think we have had a bit of an impact in other fields. For example, some of the work we do with ants now has to do with biomechanics, right? Is how are ants able to do the things they do, and can we distill that down to basic principles that can be used for design, right?
Yeah.
So there's a field called bioinspired design where we turn to biology to look for design principles that can be applied for engineering.
Wow.
And one of the groups of ants that I work on are called trapjaw ants. They have power amplified mandibles. That is, they can move their mandibles much faster than what you could possibly achieve with muscle contraction alone. And they do this by having a latch that holds the mandible open, and then an element of their either muscles or head that they use as a spring to store and release elastic strain energy.
Yeah.
And it works kind of like a mouse trap or like a crossbow, right?
Yeah.
You're building up all this energy, and then you're releasing it really quickly. And so I think by kind of understanding how that system works and how the various aspects of power amplification, like acceleration, velocity, scale with size, again, we're generating kind of information and data that's useful for a wide variety of fields that way. Yeah.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah, the general field is bio-inspired design. Wow. And that's kind of turning to nature for inspiration for design principles. And this campus happens to be really strong in that area as well, both in the Department of Entomology as well as in engineering. So it's great that we can draw for inspiration.
That's great work. Thinking back, how did you where did the fascination come from? Ants, animals? Did it start broad and then kind of narrow down to ants, or where did that fascination start?
Yeah, so during my PhD, I was actually working mostly with lizards. This was in Southern California, and these are some lizards that were being considered to be listed as state threatened or endangered.
Yeah.
At the time, they were called species of special concern. And this lizard called the coastal horned lizard ate nothing but ants, right? And so in order to understand what were the habitat requirements were for this lizard that we were worried was disappearing throughout its range, I needed to learn about ants because that's all it was eating. And so I started to learn more and more about ants. And the more I learned about ants, the more fascinated I became with them, in part because they're so important in most ecosystems they live in, but they're also social. They're obligately social.
Yeah.
Right? They live in societies. And so there are a lot of parallels that we see in social insects like ants that we do with human societies or the more complex societies.
Right.
And I became fascinated by that as well.
Wow. I did some research into Argentine ants. They basically create super colonies.
That's right.
Multiple queens.
That's right. So we often think of like a typical ant being like a colony in one place. There's a queen down there somewhere.
Yeah.
And the queen raises all of her daughters, who are the workers who take care of the colony, do the foraging, compete with other colonies. Argentine ants are somewhat unusual in that when they were introduced, they spread really rapidly, and as they spread across the landscape, they were basically one huge colony spreading with thousands. So they had this overwhelmingly large effect on the ecosystems they lived in because they were basically like a plague, going across the landscape.
Wow.
Luckily, we do not have them here in Illinois. It is too cold.
Now is that, okay, so it's the actual environment not letting them thrive.
That's right.
Here.
Things like Argentine ants and fire ants have pretty strict limits to the northern part of their range. something like 3 consecutive freezing days in January will be enough to keep their populations indoors or at bay.
Yeah.
And then we don't see them spread much further north than that.
Well, that's good news then. Okay, so really this award is based on leadership. So I want to ask, how do you collaborate with students, staff, and other faculty to make an impact on campus and beyond?
Yeah, so I think I've been very lucky since I've been here to be in units kind of at all levels, the department level, the college level, and then the campus level, that has provided really strong mentoring and leadership experience, right?
Yeah.
So no one jumps right into a leadership role having any idea what they're doing. But
Yeah,
there are
learning
workshops and there are communities of people that really have been helpful to get me some experience. And then some confidence that I won't mess everything up when I step into a role like this. And it started with directing a graduate program, then as a department head, and then I was an acting director for a school just for a semester while the current director was on sabbatical. And I think in each of those roles, I had very supportive staff that I worked with and that work with me.
That's great.
Great students who were really excited to be here at Illinois, and they valued the opportunity to be at Illinois. And other colleagues that really liked being here, right? I think Illinois draws people and keeps people because we're a very collaborative community. We get along really well. We support each other. And so in that sense, it sometimes makes leadership easier because you have people who actually want to be here. They care about their community. They're very open to new ideas, things like that. And so when I moved into some of these roles, as is often the case, the first thing you have to do is listen, right? Listen to your constituents. What are the needs?
Stakeholders.
What do we need to change? What is working and you don't want to change?
Yeah.
Then it's making sure there's a really strong mentoring plan in place. Some people just know what to do. They don't need a lot of hands-on help. They're going to do well, even if you're getting in their way, right? And other people, that's not necessarily the case. It's really good to be able to understand what are the needs of the various people. And then no two relationships are the same. You have to really understand the individuality of every relationship in these roles and then kind of go from there. And I think Illinois has been great at kind of helping get people into these positions and then supporting them in these positions so that it can be effective.
Right. And I think what you said, treating students like individuals, actually supporting them on an individual level. Not everybody needs the same things. That's great. Do you have a day, a time, a place that you felt most proud to be an Illinois faculty member? Anything stick out in your history?
Yeah, there's a few things actually. So obviously being promoted with receiving promotion with tenure.
That's always
kind of
great.
feeling like you've passed this hurdle.
Yeah.
And that it's somewhat kind of vindicated your work and your identity at the university. You feel like people that have been supportive and telling you you're on the right track, well, then you saw it through.
Right.
And so each of those steps of being promoted have been very, very important. Another thing I can't help but mention, when I returned to the university in 2003, 2004, I remember when Illinois basketball made it to the championship game.
Yeah.
And just, having that happen was great too. I've always been a big college basketball fan, so I'm waiting for them to go back to the championship game now, hopefully soon.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. That's been really important. I also, there's like the day-to-day little things. Like every semester, I get my student evaluations. I really care a lot about teaching. I love teaching. I love seeing the feedback that they give that they probably maybe wouldn't want to give like face to face, but they'll write it down and you get it through these forms.
Yeah.
So it's even the little things like that I think are really helpful to keep you going from one semester to the next.
Yeah. Did you envision when you earlier in your career, did you envision becoming a professor? Or what was your plan? And were you surprised where you ended up?
I am. So early on, I wasn't sure what to do. Like many undergraduates, I was pre-health, right? Maybe I'll be a doctor. That's a very difficult path. I don't recommend it for everyone. You really got to be sure, right?
Yeah.
And so I took a class here called Natural History of the Vertebrates, and it involved field trips and learning how to identify birds and fish and mammals and reptiles here in Illinois. And in talking to the teaching assistantships from that class, they were mentioning things like, their research on small mammals or the research on bird communities. And I'm like, wait a minute, like you can do that for a living? You spend time outside and with nature and exploring kind of environmental issues.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah, I'm like, this sounds great. And so at that point, I transitioned from like kind of a pre-health track to at the time the department was EEE, Ecology, Ethology, and Evolution, and started looking into research opportunities. Got my first research opportunities in a couple of labs here at Illinois.
Yep.
And then went on to do my master's, and then from my master's, I realized that maybe doing research is something I would really enjoy doing, and so then I applied for PhD programs, got into one, went to San Diego for that,
and
then really fell in love with research, particularly research that may make a difference in terms of conservation.
Right.
And what were my options there? My first thought was I'll go work for like Fish and Wildlife Service or Fish and Game, and work in a park and kind of be boots on the ground.
Yeah.
But in the process of doing my PhD, I started teaching, being a teaching assistant, and I loved teaching as well. And then that kind of opened up this idea of, well, maybe academics is the way to go, like sticking in the university system, which, can be stressful, but it also provides a freedom that you don't see in many other jobs, where you choose the research you want to do.
Exactly.
And you write.
Follow that passion.
Yeah, you follow that. The things that most excite you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are something you can do, like teach the class you've most wanted to teach, or do research on a subject that keeps you up at night because you're really fascinated by it. And there are very few jobs that allow that kind of intellectual freedom. And so I think once I got the taste of that, I was really hoping I'd stay in that field.
That's great. That's great. What a great story. You won this award. What does it mean to you winning the Campus Award for Excellence in Faculty Leadership?
Yeah, again, I feel so honored, in part because we have such great leaders on this campus, and many of which who I've learned from as well. And so being recognized with this award, I think it's kind of a thank you from campus for stepping up and taking leadership roles when asked, taking other service roles when asked. I think I'd never say no, because I figure if they're asking me, they're either super desperate or they really think I can contribute. And so I'll go in hoping that I can contribute, And so, it was great for, the people who nominated me, the department heads from the departments I'm associated with, my school director, the dean, people in the provost's office. I'm just so thankful that they felt that, I was deserving of this award, because I really do feel like I really try when I work in these various roles and try to make the place better, right, if at all possible.
Leave your mark. Yeah, that's great. Okay, you've led multiple departments, as you've already said, across campus. How have you approached leadership in a way that builds community and supports both faculty and students?
Yeah, so when you're kind of thrown into a leadership role, I think some of the most important things to do is not be bogged so much down by the past and the way things have been, right? There's a lot of difficulty often kind of turning a corner or kind of changing momentum, breaking out of a mold, because people are very comfortable with the way things are.
Yep.
Having said that, some things work really well, and that's why the way they are.
Yeah, right.
And so bringing a faculty together, or bringing students into a room, getting a feeling for what they think works, what they think doesn't work, making changes if necessary, but kind of empowering those changes through everyone's voices, making sure everyone has an opportunity to be heard, and that their ideas aren't going to be ignored, and they really feel like they have an ability to kind of change along with the unit and help the unit change. I think that's really effective. And so, I think a great leader is often not heard, right? There's just an amplification of the voices that are already there.
Yeah.
Similarly, I don't often like using the term leader. I love using the term champion. What you are is you're a champion for your faculty. You're a champion for your students, right? Your job is to empower them, identify what they need to be successful, providing those opportunities so that they can do more than they may have been able to without your support, right? And then that elevates everybody. And it makes it just a better place. Everyone's happier. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. You sound like, I know you don't like to use the word, but you sound like a great leader, a great person. That's awesome. What advice would you give? What advice would you give yourself, for your younger self, starting out in science or research?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel very privileged, right? Things have worked out very well for me. The fact that I'm here talking to you now about this.
Yeah.
Things have gone so well I'm so happy to be part of the Illinois family, being able to do my research here, teaching here, having such great students, having such great colleagues. It's kept me here, right? Having said that, it's not always been easy. I stressed a lot as a student. Would I ever get a job? Would my ideas ever, be validated?
Right.
Will I ever get a grant? That kind of thing. And I think if I could talk to myself when I was younger and just, tell myself, keep doing what you're doing. It's going to work out. Like, you have to have confidence in what you do and confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Because no one else will, right? To some extent. And particularly if you're trying to think outside of the box and you're worried if like, oh, this idea, is it going to catch on? Are people going to care about it? Even if they don't, that's okay. Other ideas will.
Right.
That, you're always moving forward. Not everything has to be a home run. You're building on these really small steps. But as long as you love what you do and you put passion into it, that's going to come across in your work. People are going to notice.
Yeah, that's the building blocks.
So that's the advice. If I could go back and tell myself,
that's awesome.
It's going to be all right.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you too. Thanks for having me. This has been fun.